There we go. So, when we went to hit record late. But so when we talk about psychological safety, we really have to thank Amy Edmondson for this type of work. The book is really great. It's an easy read, so I really recommend it. I was teaching a class in one of the health systems on leading change, and I mentioned this book, and none of them had heard of it. And I'm like, oh, you need to go watch the TED Talk. You need to go read the book. Like, this is so important. Um, but it relates to everything we do. So, what is psychological safety? Psychological safety exists when people feel their team is a place where they can speak up and offer ideas, that they're not afraid to be embarrassed, that they are not going to be shamed or punished for asking questions. Um, and it's really related to information gathering, asking questions, employee satisfaction. And so when we think about um, psychological safety, that's really what it's rooted in. And this really gives you a clean picture of psychological safety because a lot of people confuse trust and psychological safety. You can have trust without psychological safety, but you cannot have psychological safety without trust. So, trust is when we look at the Catalyst team, I trust Jenna, and Jenna trusts me. But I may not trust that Emma won't make fun of me or tease me if I ask a question. So, I may be comfortable asking Jenna a question one on one. But when we get into a larger group, I don't have the safety to speak up. And so true psychological safety is when we all feel that we can ask questions or take risk or speak up in a meeting or in conversations. And so it's really that interpersonal risk taking that really is the root of psychological safety. So, yeah, I can't say it enough. It really, truly is like trust. You can have trust without psychological safety, but you cannot have psychological safety without trust. And I really like this graphic because we look at psychological danger versus psychological. So when you look at the danger, fear of admitting mistakes, blaming other people, team members are less likely to share their views, allowing group dynamics to affect decision making. So if you think about the worst organization you've been a part of, you have maybe a friend's been a part of, like, when I think of the worst place I've ever worked, like, yes, I mean, it is just like flashing red lights on all of these. There's a lot of talking behind closed doors. There's a lot of, um, not putting yourself out there. So that's really that psychological danger. Where the safety is really comfortable admitting mistakes and learning from our failures. Everyone openly shares ideas. This is where really you also have that healthy conflict. For organizations to really, really grow, you're going to be able to have hard conversations and really be able to share ideas openly. And then from there, there's better innovation and better decision making. So that's really the difference between being an unsafe environment and being a really safe environment.
I always like to mention that the psychological safety, the psychological danger is really where you feel like it's like the in group and the out group. Like
Mhm.
you might feel like there's a group there that you kind of fit in with, but there's no clubs in psychological safe groups. Like might have people who like each other more, but you never feel uncomfortable being with that group or asking or sharing your ideas with that group either. It's the difference between the good old boys clubs and not having those groups present anymore.
Yeah, yeah. I used to work for an individual that um, if you question him in a meeting, you just stop getting invited to meetings. So it was like, it's not that you're not cool, it's that you're just not even there anymore. So um, that's fun. There might be stories about him in my book. Um, so, so ways to cultivate psychological safety. One important thing is clarifying roles. When there is role confusion, it really can lead to challenges in group dynamics. If people don't know their roles and responsibilities, sometimes people will try to step up and do things that aren't in the scope of their work, or there may be confusion on who's taking lead on things. And so, one way to really have that safety is those role clarifications. The next thing is really modeling the way. And every leadership program we do, I mean, this is really kind of at the root of it all. We've got to make sure as leaders that we're setting the tone, being curious, asking questions. I'm one of the first to admit mistakes. I think it is so powerful when you can share with your people that you're not perfect. Because when we model that, when we pretend like we're perfect and don't model that it's okay to make mistakes, then your people will also be afraid to admit their mistakes. So it's really important that we really model that behavior for our people. Um, Other ways to improve, or I'm sorry, signs that your team needs to improve. So, are you noticing whether your people are asking questions? Are your meetings really quiet? Are people not asking or giving constructive feedback? There may be also hesitancy. If again, if you have that like just harmony where everybody's agreeing all the time, or people are afraid to ask silly questions, that could be a sign that you need to improve your psychological safety. So really that do all team members feel comfortable? Not just the cool kids, but does everyone feel comfortable brainstorming? And do all team members feel that they can share openly, or do they feel like they will be shunned? Or just quite frankly, just silenced in a meeting? So here's some tips uh, on how to really build psychological safety in the workplace. One is showing your team that you're engaged. And that can be hard sometimes, especially when we are overwhelmed. We got a lot of irons in the fire. We got a lot of things going on. And you have to really make sure as a leader that you know what's going on, that you're tapped in to what's happening when you're not around. And so really being engaged as much as you can. Also letting your team know that you understand and understand them. Uh, so often, you know, we may feel like we have the right answer. And so we're just, because we're busy and stressed and whatever, we may be quick to shut down questions or curiosity or something like that. But really, what we need to do is hear people and understand what they're going through and understand their feelings. Um, Another important one is avoid blaming to build trust. We see this a lot of time in organizations, especially organizations that are struggling, where a manager, supervisor, director will hit their team against another team. So it may look like, they come back from a director's meeting and be like, sorry, I asked for pay increases for all of you, but, Jenna's team is taking all of our money because they're throwing these elaborate parties. And then Emma's team, they're not making the sales that they need to make. And so, sorry, we can't do our job and I can't take care of you because those two directors aren't doing their job. That's not not really creating safety. And what I find in those or in those situations are a lot of times when we are bad mouthing people when they're not in the room, other people will think, well, what did they say about me? What do they say when I'm not in the room? And so I always tell this story. I have this woman that's in our friend group. And I always say it like that because I don't really consider her a friend of mine, but she's in my friend group. And she's the mom in high school that knows everybody's business, knows all the kids' business, and will openly share. But she always starts the conversation with, I don't like to talk about it, or, don't tell anybody, or, something along those lines. And then she will tell the dirtiest, darkest secrets about people. And when I question her and say, what do you say about me and my kids and my family when we're not in the room? And she's like, oh, no, I'd never talk about you. I would never talk about you. And it's like, I don't trust you. And I don't feel safe sharing anything. So I never share anything. And when I do, it is usually a tall tale about how, my daughter was crowned princess of, a country. I just am very careful what I share around this woman. And we see that in the workplace as well. So we've got to be really careful, and especially in times of frustration or, challenging times, budget. A lot of times this happens around budget. We just got to be really careful in how we talk about each other. We got to be self-aware. I mean, this is the root for leaders is paying attention. I know at times when I am tired or frustrated or fired up or passionate, some bad behaviors can come about. And so really making sure that we're taking care of ourselves, that we're being self-aware, and that we're not allowing bad behavior to come out when we are in a vulnerable state. And then demand the same of your team. And then the other thing is when that does happen, share it, apologize, and move on.
This is that put your oxygen mask on first before.
Yeah. Yeah,
You can't
exactly.
be a good leader if you're stressed out and not taking care of yourself, and nor can your team.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. Nipping negativity in the bud. This is hard as well, especially, in tough times. But to create a really safe team, we can't get everyone in a room to just complain. And so often, that's what we will do is we will say, okay, we've got a problem. Let's all get together and talk about it. And instead of coming up with solutions, it's into a very negative tailspin spiral out of control. And that doesn't do anyone any good. And it doesn't create a safe environment for people. Go ahead, Emma.
I was just gonna say, once in my very early career, I ended up in a situation like that where I was on a team where it was me and two other people, and we had a boss who was basically hardly ever in the room. And when that person was in the room, they were doing something kind of awful. And so it came to the point where every time the three of us were together, all we did was talk bad about our boss. And there started to be this negativity. One thing would be said and then someone else would agree, and then someone else felt like, oh, well, shoot, I can just be negative all the time now. And looking back, boy, I wish I would have been more of a leader to nip that negativity in the bud when it started, because it ended up pushing me out of the organization, because it was just, like you said, a spiral of negativity that it became a place I just didn't want to be every day. And I wish that I would have had the presence of mind to be a leader in that moment. I was just so early in my career. It didn't occur to me. I just wanted to go with what everybody else was saying. But, it's just so important, because I think, things would have ended up for me differently in that organization had I been brave enough to say, hey, I don't think we should just talk negatively all the time. This is not really appropriate.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree. Selfishly, I'm glad you didn't speak up and things didn't go well. But no, you're absolutely right. And I think so many times too, even in an unsafe environment, it is really hard, whether we're early in our career or later in our career. I mean, one of the spots where I was on a leadership team, um, no one was safe speaking up. And so all of the other leaders would come to me because they knew I would speak up. And that put me in an even worse position, because now I'm like, well, I've heard and many people have said, and then when you say it in public and no one backs you up, it's like, okay, I'm not fighting your battles for you. But going back to the oxygen mask, it's draining, and it really wears you out when you're constantly having to battle an unsafe organization. Include your team in decision making as much as you can. I have always worked really hard to, share as much with my teams as I can, because I want them to feel like hiding anything, or that they don't have input. And even if um, my team asks for something and I can't deliver it, I will do as much as I can to explain why, again, without throwing anyone under the bus or, trying to protect things. I will also say I'm a firm believer as a leader that you celebrate in public and you criticize in private and you coach in private. And so I very rarely will ever in public, um, y- y- I can't even think of a time where in public I would say something negative about my team. But it's those kind conversations behind the scenes that are so important. In the past, when I've been asked, like if my team makes a mistake in a meeting, I always say, it's me. I'm the leader of the team. It's me. It's my decision. It ends with me. I'll never give a name in meeting. Jenna?
Yeah, this is one of the times that I have like such a vivid story in my brain of a time where a boss was criticizing somebody in front of an entire team, and it was like a visceral reaction for me. I couldn't do what Emma did and keep my mouth shut. I actually kind of took the brunt of the force myself, but I was working in sports at the time, and this was homecoming weekend, which is the busiest weekend for any sports organization in collegiate athletics, right? And we had 15 things going on at that point. My coworker and I had been working together for a year or so, and he did so much and did it with very little appreciation, very little everything. And our boss was berating him in a meeting, not just like criticizing, berating him for, you didn't get this done, you didn't get this done, you didn't do this, I need you to do this, you have to do it this way, it has to be like this. And I was looking at the list of everything else that he was managing, and I was like, Frank, stop. And he looked at me in the fastest way I think I've ever seen somebody look at somebody. And I just couldn't let somebody else, and I couldn't sit there and let somebody be berated anymore when I knew how much he was doing, how much he was working. And it still to this day just blows my mind to think about sitting in that meeting and then him turning around to me and being like, you don't have any input. Why are you piping up? And just back and it was the meeting that like literally broke the camel's back. And I was like, nope, this is not going to be how it is anymore. But I've never in my life been able to understand why it was acceptable in that place for him to, and it wasn't like it was a small team. There was me, the guy he was talking to, the boss, and 4 other people in the room. So there was like 6 or 7 people. And I can't, everybody, and maybe not everybody functions this way, but everybody's doing the best they can. And he's still at that point like 24 years old. Leave him alone. And so it's just one of those things that this one kicks me hard, of somebody who, it's one thing to say, hey, I want to talk to you. It's another thing to just completely, and after that, we never did anything differently. I will say the one good thing that came from it is, while we acted differently towards our boss, we as a team banded together in a very different way after that, because Tori knew I had his back and I would not let that happen anymore. So that's just one of the ones that I think is super impactful, and it breaks teams apart very quickly when bosses don't do a good job of celebrating in groups and coaching in private.
Yeah, I agree. And that leads beautifully to, as leaders, we got to be open to feedback. We've got to be self-aware. We've got to hear feedback. We have to know that we're not perfect. We make mistakes. And, when our people share it with us, even if it doesn't feel good immediately, really, taking that feedback and finding opportunities to grow from it. And here are 4 quadrants of psychological safety. I really like this graphic because when we look at different types of safety, so we have learner safety. So it's safe for us to discover and ask questions, experiment, make mistakes, looking for opportunities to learn and grow. So that's one quadrant. The other is collaborator safety. It is safe for us to engage unconstrained and be able to really help in all ways, interact with our colleagues and have conversations, have mutual access. Have you ever worked for an organization where it is so siloed that you feel like you're putting a puzzle piece together because Jenna has a little information and Emma has a little information, I have a little information, but because we don't talk to each other on a regular basis, we can never finish the puzzle because we all have different pieces. So making sure that we all have access to all of the information, that we maintain an open dialogue, and then foster constructive debate. Healthy conflict is what actually helps organizations really move forward and ask those hard questions. Inclusion safety. This is where we know we're valued. We know that we truly belong as opposed to fitting in. We can come as our authentic true self and feel that we're going to be treated fairly, feel that our experiences and ideas matter, and that regardless of our title, regardless of our position, we can openly contribute and we won't be seen in a negative light. And then challenger safety. This has been my life. When we talk about emotional intelligence, like my problem is my passion gets in my way. And sometimes I don't let my brain catch up with my tongue. But being able to challenge the status quo, like being able to speak up when something is going wrong, or that doesn't feel right, expressing ideas, identifying changes, and exposing problems. And so that's the 4 quadrants. You really need to have every one of these to have true psychological safety. And so it's lovely if you have 1, 2, or 3, but to be a truly safe organization, you've got to have every one of those. So what? Here's your homework assignment. Here's your little takeaway. This is a quick 5-minute psychological safety audit by Amy Edmondson. The key to this is, do all people in your organization feel this way? So if you make a mistake on the team, will it be held against you? The answer obviously should be no, it will not. Are the members of the team able to bring up typo problems and tough issues? So can we speak up? Can we bring ideas? Do people on the team sometimes reject others for being different? Are we lacking inclusivity? Are we lacking belonging? Is it safe to take risks on the team? Is it difficult to ask other members of the team for help? Oh, another typo. I was typing fast this morning. Would anyone on the team deliberately act in a way that undermines efforts? We see this in unsafe environments where there may be this undercover kind of mole kind of situation where someone is running in between people and just sprinkling drama and issues and causing problems. Tracy's like, yes, here's their names. But we see that and they'll do it on the guise of they're trying to help or be supportive, or you need to know this, and really what they're doing is they're disrupting the organization. And does the team value and utilize unique skills and talents? Again, that goes to that belonging. Can we come as our true authentic self? So that is, in a nutshell, psychological safety. So I will stop sharing, and then questions, thoughts, stories.
I have a comment.
Yes.
And sorry if it's completely way off base, but I know as a presenter myself, when you're presenting, it's frustrating when people aren't on camera, and we're close enough group. In full transparency, it's been fire drill morning, and I haven't even brushed my teeth, makeup, anything, and I haven't been able to even get into the office. But just the little nuggets, and I know how much work you guys put into putting these on, and so I want to just come on and say thank you, because I've been able to pop in, I've been able to pop out. I know all of our schedules are wonky. It does stay on my calendar, But there's not one of these that I haven't walked away with a nugget here, a nugget there, a lot of nuggets that I've been able to implement with my team. And so for that, like I said, my point of saying is I know it's frustrating, especially when there's only three of us on or we're not on camera. And sometimes it can feel like you're talking, but you're not, and it's not falling on deaf ears. And I think I saw Tracy taking notes. I have notes too, as I've been prior drill, I've been emailing and then also writing notes and taking screenshots. And so I just want to say thank you because the content you guys have provided, to my opinion, has been very helpful, very insightful. And you're right. Sometimes it is just those little reminders. And when you, and Emma, to your point on your story you told, when you just become that leader and exude positivity and just put that out into the world, it is received. And so for that, thank you.
Oh, thank you so much. I appreciate it. We love this. And, to me, it's that ripple effect. If one, two, three people, get nuggets out of it, it is worth every piece of our energy. So thank you so much. I'm glad you're here.
So
getting
yeah,
stuff
not
on
really
it.
a question, but I just,
Oh,
I wanted to say that. So we appreciate
thank
you guys.
you. Oh, we love doing it for you guys. It makes us so happy.
Oh my gosh, this is Lori. I would just like to second that. I have not made nearly as many of these as I would like to, and I cannot be on camera right now because I had an early breakfast and then I got rained on and I'm soaking wet. And so I'm feeling a little not camera ready at the moment, but these have been really useful and I always take away a gem or two. So we so appreciate it and thank you for doing it, even if there's only a few of us, on a given morning.
Oh, thank you. Oh gosh, you're gonna make me cry. I'm an easy crier. Thank you. I mean, this is truly why we do what we do, and this is why we run Catalyst is, we always say it's not why you should be a leader, it's how you should be a leader. And, we really hope that everyone gets nuggets, whether they use it this afternoon or they use it in 3 months. That's why we do what we do. So thank you so much. We will just keep doing it. And I know I'm talking to Melissa, how do we do it a little different next year? How do we have some kind of in-person options and things like that? So we're going to just keep growing this and building this. And we really want to marry golf and leadership together because so many of these skills that we, learn on the golf course, we use in the boardroom and then vice versa.
And don't ever feel like we hear people like yesterday, somebody came up to me and it's like, yeah, I watched the replay of the videos. So don't ever feel like you guys, we don't know that you guys watch them. We do. We hear you at golf and hear you at lessons and stuff and get feedback. And if you guys ever have questions after you watch one, please come back to us. I know sometimes it's hard to go back and rewatch something, but like put it on your calendar when you find a 30-minute, hour-long block that you can actually go in and watch some of the other ones we've done for you if you miss them. And then feel free to ask us questions. We just want to help. We love all of the women in this group because we know that as women, we typically don't get these things given to us, at least not until later in our career, right? And then we're just like, oh God, I got to figure it out.
But I just wanted to share something that I have decided for myself this week. And, we are such a busy group of women, maybe it'll be useful to someone else. I have discovered that when I am tired, when I've had a day or maybe more than a day where I just haven't had enough sleep and my schedule has been too crazy to take a rest at all or get a workout or, any of the things that I need to sort of stay even, I have discovered that what comes out of my mouth is something I'm generally not proud of the next day. Like I'll get more upset about something dumb. And I've really, I'm trying to tell myself, look, if you're really upset about something, you need to wait 48 hours. Like for you, the time period to wait to respond is 48 hours. Like you have to have time to process it. So I try to learn about myself that I need to have a little processing time. And then also that when I'm tired, I actually need to kind of stay away from people until I can even myself out again. And I'm generally a pretty even-tempered person. But for whatever reason at this time of my life, the sleep thing is a problem. And when it gets too many days in a row, I'm really having a hard time keeping my normal sort of just equilibrium. So I'm trying to say, okay, maybe I'll try to work at home that day or, whatever. I need to I'm just, so sometimes I think we as women just need to understand what day are you having to stay positive and, kind of process before you open your mouth. Cause there's nothing worse than waking up the next day and saying, oh my God, I can't believe I said that. That was so negative. It was totally how I was feeling, but it did not need to come out of my mouth at the time that it did. So
Yeah.
I don't know. Maybe you guys also have those days when you don't get enough sleep and your mouth doesn't work nearly as well as normal.
Yeah.
I sometimes will tell my husband, here's what I really want to say right now, like just so I can get it out. And then I'm like, nothing I'm actually going to say to that person is going to be nearly as awful as the things I just said. But with him, I can just say it because anybody who's on my bad side, my husband would gladly hunt down and murder for me. It's a problem, but so I can do all my I can get it, or I'll type myself an email, like, here's what I really want to say. But then of course I'm going to delete all of that. I'm not going to use any of it. So that's kind of how I've tempered that sometimes when I'm in the same spot.
I know, Lori, I would agree. I am the queen at writing myself emails and making sure that I am in the subject line first and put all of my thoughts at the end of the day out in that email and then send it only to myself and then let it sit. And then I come back the next day and say, oh, okay.
That is smart.
That's a great idea. So you guys are using
Like-
journaling essentially to sort of get it
because then
out.
I don't miss anything. Because by the next morning, it'll be time oh, I should have. But then at least I have all my information and how I can see how I was feeling and then go back and decipher. Here's what really needs to be said.
I do that with notes on my text messages. Instead of writing a text message to somebody where it can accidentally get sent, I'll open a note on my phone and then I'll type it out, or I'll speak it to my phone. And that times even where you can voice text it. And then I'm like, oh, okay, I feel a little better. Mine's usually not tired though, Lori. Mine's hungry.
Oh, that's funny.
Well, and there's a lot of times too where I will either go to my husband or to Emma or Jenna or all three and be like, here's how I'm feeling in this situation. Is it me? Is it legitimate? Is it, especially like I mentioned, I'm very passionate. I'm super emotional, good or bad. So I know that about myself at this point. So I can, and kind of my girlfriend and my rule is 3 days. We give ourselves 3 days to process. So I'll do a lot of check-in. I love the journaling and emails. I'm going to start doing that to myself. But yeah, the biggest thing at this point in our life is we all need to give ourselves grace and we need to give each other grace and we need to just be there because everyone's messy. It's not intentional.
Emma, doesn't Marie Forleo actually talk about using writing to process through things? Doesn't she have an activity she does in her book?
I don't know if it's hers. I know that she does a morning journaling. I think it actually was someone else's first, but I know she does morning pages.
Yeah.
And
I think, ladies, this is Emma and I both love Marie Forleo. If you've not listened to her book or had her, she's great. She is what I think my way of writing would be if I were a writer. The beginning of her book is if you don't like cuss words, you should probably go ahead and close the book now. So I'm like, oh, okay, like this one. Her book is called Everything is Figure Outable. And I think the end of her book, she has this activity where she talks about setting a 20-minute journal timer. This is kind of talking about more traumatic things, but even if it's something that's just irritating you, and the study showing that 20 minutes of writing, actual physical writing, helps people to process much better than any other form of, verbal communication or anything like that. And people who had done that, I think, had 15% less anxiety or something after they went through this activity. I'll have to look up the activity and share it with you later, but it was a really cool piece that she shared that was helpful to processing irritating feelings.
yeah, that's ringing a bell. We'll look it up for you guys and we'll put it on the web page whenever we upload this video.
You know what, too, you guys, is, it sounds like Katie and I both have given ourselves time to process. part of the reason that I do that is because just because I'm feeling like this today doesn't mean I'm going to feel like this in 2 days.
Yeah.
And a lot of times, I have learned to, ask myself, how would I prefer to approach this? Because just because I'm feeling like this right now, or this is because this is my opinion right now, it doesn't mean that I can't choose to have a different opinion or feel about it a different way. And it's a way that it's sort of a way to retrain your own brain, but you have to give yourself to get through your first reaction, probably to get to the next step where you decide how you want to feel about it, how you want to think about it. Whatever. I mean, maybe you're consulting, 3 girlfriends, right? I don't necessarily write it, but I might talk to 3 girlfriends who are not in my organization, right? About whatever it is that's going on. Anyway, I do think that we have some choice, right? Just because you think it doesn't mean it's true.
Yeah.
Or that it has to be true.
I love that. Yeah, that's so right. And boy, that makes me think last night, my 21-year-old came home. He's in his first job and he's up for a promotion and he was kind of ranting and raving about something. And, I wear 2 hats with him. Like I'm mom and I'm also, a business advisor. And so I put on my business advisor hat last night and trying to give him tips in his early career. And he looked me in the eye and he goes, look, I'm just trying to get this out so I don't use it at work. Like I'm just venting, I'm sharing with you. And I'm like, noted, valid, good reminder. Thank you. I will put on my listening hat and my mom hat and love on you. But we do that with our friends and everyone as well.
Yeah,
I'll
that's
do
awesome.
the 6 minutes, 6 days, 6 months, 6 years activity with something sometimes. Like if it's really irritating, like, how am I gonna feel in 6 minutes? Okay, probably still irritated. How am I gonna feel in 6 days? How about 6 months? How about 6 years? Most of the time you're like, yeah, this isn't worth being mad about anymore. Okay.
Yeah. Oh, I love this. I love this time with you ladies. It makes me so happy. Thank you. Thank you, Mandy, and Lori for the kind words, and I appreciate it. I'm really excited. Our next one we're going to talk about is imposter syndrome. And it just kind of a secret for you all. It's not a secret. I tell everybody all the time. Emma and Jenna are collaborating on our next book. So the follow-up to You Might Be an Asshole. And it's going to be about imposter syndrome and the stories we tell ourselves and the stories we let other people tell us and how we need to tell that little stupid voice in our head. Mine's, I just name her Sasha because it's easy to tell her to be quiet. But how do we quiet our inner Sashas and, really conquer the world and stop imposter syndrome? So, I'm excited. That's our topic in 2 weeks.
That sounds awesome. This is such a group of
That
deep
will be
thinkers.
exciting. I love
I'm
that.
so glad we're doing this. That'll be awesome.
I
Yeah.
appreciate you letting me be real in all of my no makeup, no hair, pajamas, no bra, and teeth not brushed. Like
We love it.
Are you
When you're
kidding? This, no judgment.
because of the rain at 6:30 in the morning, you're like, okay, here we go.
I'm here for it.
No judgment zone. I mean, seriously, if someone's going to judge you because you don't brush your teeth in your own house, then that's on them, not on us.
I can't smell your
Another
breath.
cup of
So
coffee first.
You're gorgeous.
You're
Right.
sweet, Lori. Well,
Oh,
I appreciate y'all. I'm gonna go deal with the next employee fire drill here. So have a
All right.
happy rainy Wednesday.
have
You
an
guys-
awesome day,
Thank you,
ladies. Good to see
ladies.
ya.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
Bye, guys.
Bye.
End recording.